Hi, this is Dave and welcome to the Table, a series of videos where I review and discuss various board and card games looking at them from a family perspective. Today we're going to be taking a look at Royals from Level 32 Studios. Now Royals is a 34 card micro game. It's a strategic card game where you're going to be playing cards from your hand in one of two ways, either as a consort or as a schemer in an attempt to gain the most dominance points. Let's take a look at this game and how it's played, and I'll come back and I'll give you my thoughts. Okay, let's take a look at the components of Royals, which is essentially a 34 card micro game here divided up into two factions, and we're going to have the Royalists and the Imperialists. The Royalists are the red on the left here, and the Imperialists are on the right with the blue. And if you notice in the artwork, essentially it's cats versus dogs. Now let me explain to you all of the information that's on these cards, and then I'll explain to you how to play the game. For example, here we have the card titles. We have a merchant here and we have a butler here, and there will be a portrait of the character on the card. Underneath them here, there is a number, and that represents the number of dominance points in this game, which are essentially the victory points. So when you play these cards a certain way, you will gain victory points at the end, and that's if you play the card as a consort. And these cards can be played two different ways. They can be played as a consort or as a schemer, and there's information on the cards for how you can play them either way. When you choose to play a card as a consort, you play it face up from your hand, placed down in front of you just like this, and you declare that you're playing it as a consort, and then you will be able to reap the benefit of whatever text is written in the tan box. For example, here that says you gain +4 dominance if you have 4 or more consorts. So at the end of the game, if you have 4 or more consorts in front of you, you will score an additional 4 dominance points. Now you may also choose to play this card as a schemer, and if you choose to play the card as a schemer, you take it from your hand, place it on the table sideways like this, declare that you're playing it as a schemer, and use the scheming ability here. For example, this says take any player's schemer and add it to your hand. So if another player had played a schemer, you would be able to put it into your hand. And then finally down at the bottom there is a number, and that has this represents the supporter value of a particular card or a requirement. And so none of these require any additional cards, but some of the cards in here will require additional cards to be played to be supporters in order to have them on the board. Okay, so let me get this game shuffled up and I will show you how to play. Okay, I went ahead and I shuffled up the cards for Royals, and I dealt each player a hand of 5 cards. Here I'm going to do a 3-player demo to show you how to play this game. Now, one thing that I want to say is to kind of grasp the concept of how this game is played. Think of 5-card stud poker, in that you have to do the best with what you have with those 5 cards. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to be stuck with 5 cards, but we can't really trade anything in unless we have a particular schemer ability. But if you grasp the concept that we have 5 cards to work with, this game will make a lot more sense. So what we need to do is we want to try to score the most number of dominance points at the end of this round, and how we're going to do that is we're going to be playing these cards from our hand. Now, each of these particular cards has a specific windfall ability as well as a schemer ability, and we have to make a choice as to how we're going to play these cards, and each one kind of has their own unique strategy. If we decide, maybe if we look at this particular windfall ability for this consort, it says you gain +3 dominance if you have the least amount of dominance at the end. So if we're going to essentially be shooting for last place, you're going to get an additional 3 dominance, and it may help you win. Now this one here says you gain +2 dominance if you have the most imperialist cards in play. So we want to play a lot of blue cards. Well, you know what, in our hand here we don't have very many blue cards. We only have 2, so we may want to use this as a schemer ability here, which says cancel a player's scheme. So we want to hold on to this in case somebody wants to do something to get ahead. We can stop them from doing that. So, and we have this one here, which is kind of unique, this Jester, and it says you gain 3 dominance for each supporter this card has. I could empty out my whole hand and score a whole bunch of points just to see what happens. So if I decide to put down all of these cards right here underneath the Jester, I could essentially have 12 dominance points. So maybe I will decide to do that. I'm going to play this Jester here as a consort, and I'm going to place all of the other cards underneath there as supporters. So I'm banking on the fact that I'm going to get 12 points. 12 dominance. So they're going to be shooting for a high number, the other players. So I kind of just put all my cards on the table, and so now these other two players are going to have to battle it out in order to get ahead. Now if we look at this card over here, we do have some points that we could get up there. For example, here, this princess, she's going to require 2 supporters though, so we're going to need to get some cards in our hand. So maybe we'll play this lord here as a schemer, and we'll draw a card and add it to your hand. And so we will draw that card and we'll put it in our hand. And so that will be our turn. Next player here will do the same thing here. We will, but I think we're going to play this, where it says the queen. You gain +4 if all your consorts are royalist. And she needs to have 3 supporters. Well, if I look at these peasant cards here, they state you gain +1 dominance if this card is a supporter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this, and I happen to have 2 of them in my hand here. I'm going to play these in an attempt to get some major points here. And then I'm going to place this third one as a supporter underneath this queen. So I'm going to do this. So supporters do not count as consorts. So right now she fulfills her own windfall thing here too. Now, we've already played her cards here. Back to this player number 2. And I think we're going to play this other one as a schemer. It says draw a card and add it to your hand. So we will place that card there. Back to this player number 2 here, or player number 3, and we will play this as a schemer here and draw a card and add it to our hand. And we will place this down here. Back to player number 2. We will play, let's see. I'm going to play this princess, and it says you gain +3 dominance if you had an odd number of consorts, and so she also is going to require 2 supporters. So I am going to place these 2 cards underneath the princess as a supporter. So now we have 6 points right here, and we have an odd number of consorts at this point, so she'll gain some bonus points. So you're doing a lot of math in your hand. Now back to this particular player right here, and I can do this and play this card. It says play the scheme of any in-play imperialist card. So any imperialist card that is in play, and so maybe I will take this, play this particular scheme here and draw a card, which we will do right here. Place this in our hand. Back to this player here, number 2, and I'm going to play this as a scheme here, gain +3 dominance. Back to player number 3, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this as a consort here, and it says you gain +1 dominance for each royalist schemer in play. So I'll have to look through those cards and see what happens. And then finally, this one here, we're going to play this as a schemer, draw a card and add it to my hand. And essentially right here, we will take this particular card here. Maybe we'll play this as a schemer here. Take any player's schemer and add it to your hand. So I can look through here, see what happens. We'll take this one here. We'd be able to play this and add a card, draw a card, add it to our hand. And now here we can essentially just play this out and force a player to discard a card from their hand, which we don't have any. Now that we've played all the cards from our hands, what we will do is we will add up the number of points. Here we know this is going to be 12 dominance. Right here, this says You gain +3 if you have an odd number of consorts. So we have 6 plus 3 is 9, plus we have this other 3 dominance over here, which is 12 points. So this one is tied right here. We've got 12. And then this one over here, gain +4 if all your consorts are royalists, which we do. And so this is going to be 11 plus these two, 12, 13 points. And it says gain +1 for each royalist schemer in play. And so we've got a couple of them right here. So this is going to put us at 15 points. So this particular player would win the round. And that is how you play royals. Okay, let's talk about royals here. And this game was one of the winners in a micro game design contest hosted by the Game Crafter. So congratulations to Level 32 Studios for a game-winning design here. And let's start talking about this game by looking at the artwork. Now the artwork for this game is amazing. If you look at it, it's got really, really cool character illustrations for each of the roles that is in the game. And the cards are very, very clear and easy to understand. They're well designed in terms of font selection and layout. So these cards, they look good in your hand, and they're easy to decipher what's going on. So just a really, really, really nice card design. Now, looking at this gameplay, there is a lot more to this game than what you would expect. Okay, initially, if you were just to look at this deck of cards here and you were looking at the artwork, you're like, oh, cool, it's kind of like cats versus dogs and stuff like that. No, there's more to it than that. And essentially, you have 4 things going on in this game. You have the 2 different factions. You have the Royalists and the Imperialists, as well as the 2 different abilities that you can choose for the cards. You can either play it as a consort or play it as a schemer. So you have those 4 different things going on, and looking at them, you can take some of those elements and they can work together, and they make a really nice synergy. And therein lies how you're going to be successful with this game, and that's how you're going to have your strategy for this game. Now, one thing I did note about this game, because I've played this a number of times, you can't make an initial assessment of this game playing at one time, because you're not really going to understand it. You're not going to understand it, because you're not going to get a good feel for all the card synergy. You're just going to play through and go, oh, okay, well, I just played 5 cards out. I'm not really sure what I did. You have to spend some time with this game, and the more time you spend with the game, the better it gets. So because you kind of understand all of the synergy, and if you're playing it with multiple players, if you're playing this with 4 players and they all know what's going on, it's going to make for some very interesting rounds of gameplay. Now, there's a few different avenues that you can go with this particular game with some of the cards. For example, in the gameplay, player number 1, we played that Jester, and we played out all the cards banking on trying to have a high score, and then kind of setting the bar kind of high for the other players to achieve. And so we played that out right away, and so we're sitting back, and we made that decision, and we committed to that. And so now the other players are going to be like, well, I have to at least score 12. I have to get 13 points in order to win. Like when we played, we had 12 points. And so it was a bit of a challenge as to how the other players were going to play out their particular hand and how they're going to manage their cards that they have in their hand, either playing them as consorts or schemers, and kind of having an initial strategy of that game. So looking at this game from a family perspective, one of the things that this game teaches is what it looks like to commit to something, because you have to come up with an initial strategy for this game, and you're going to have to play it out all the way through, because you can't really try to change things through midstream, because you're not going to have the card synergy that's going to get you a lot of dominance points. So you're going to have to come up with an initial strategy before you place your first card. So take some time to think. So you have some decision-making skills that are going to be developed by playing this game as well. And again, hand management, how you're going to play those cards out. Are you going to play them as consorts or as schemers? So there is quite a bit to playing this game. I like this game the more that I spend time with it. When I first played the game a few times, I wasn't really sure where I stood with it. But the more time that I played the game and the more rounds that I played, and I started to see how the cards work together and really to come up with a good strategy, then I was able to really kind of settle in and enjoy this game. And I really like to play this game with other people that are at the same level playing the game, that they have some good knowledge with it, because it makes this game really, really have some meat to it. Okay, so that's where I best see this game is you have some people that if you play this game a number of times and you allow yourselves to spend some time with this game, you will really get to enjoy this game. If you just play this game once or twice, you may not really appreciate it for what it is. There was a lot of work that was put into designing this game. I can tell the more that I have played it. Okay, so there's where I stand on Royals. I like this game. Now, if you would like to give this game a try, then go ahead and order yourself a copy. I will have all of the ordering information in the video description below, and get yourself a copy of Royals and see where you are. If you find yourself on the Royalists or the Imperialists, see where you best find your fit. All right, that's it for now, and join me again next time as we take a look at another game and we see how it makes it to the table.